Welcome back to West Texas View.
All right, so now we've gotten into Cuba, and I want you to continue your story. You've got this wonderful employee that really understands the culture, and so where have we gone from there?
Well, Tony's not actually an employee, he's our representative, and we give him money to accomplish the tasks.
I see.
Because it's against the law to give Cuban nationals American dollars because of the embargo. So we make sure that he has all of the resources, Bibles, correspondence studies, those
DVDs.
technology. And when we go there, he takes care of, we make sure he has the money to take care of our hotel and those kind of things. Tony travels the country. There are 12 million people in Cuba.
12 million.
12 million. From one end, from the Isle of Youth, which is a little island off of the western coast, all the way to Guantanamo. Now, we all know where Guantanamo is. Well, it's not just a naval station. There is a province of Guantanamo. He travels the entire nation doing follow-up from a radio program that one of my colleagues, Tim Archer, does that's beamed into Cuba. It's called Lele la Biblia, Know Your Bible. And so we give the Cuban address. So all the people who want to know more about whatever the topic was on that radio program goes to Tony's address in Cuba. So the last time, as I told you, last time we were there, he said, everybody has a DVD player. And so I decided we're going to take video equipment in for them to produce their own videos, whether it be a sermon or a lesson or a study guide. And so we buy, in America, $5,000 to $6,000 worth of video equipment. And the old man has to lug it in. And I'm always worried about who's going to search it and ask what we're doing. And when we got to Cuba, they did. And we said, it's video equipment. We're TV media. We do ministry with television. Oh, welcome to Cuba. We walked right in. Tony met us at the Havana airport. And I said, Tony, I was so worried. Got all this stuff. And he said, did you pray about it? I said, well, of course I did. He said, well, then what did you expect? Okay, well, yeah.
Oh, what? You have a little faith.
Yes. So he has a little team of individuals who work on the DVDs. He's got 2 camera people, and he's got an editor and all those kind of, from their local congregation. These are not professionals like you have in your TV station. These are just average Cubans who on their off time work for this TV ministry.
And they don't have a lot of off time because they have to work hard to earn their $20 a month.
The average Cuban has $20 American that he earns each month, and each Cuban gets a stipend of staples, rice and beans, from the Cuban government when it's available. Shortages are notorious. That's not just true in Cuba, it's also true in Africa. But it's there. And so they spend a lot of their time working or going to work. The number one means of transportation in Cuba is walking. I remember one morning, I don't sleep well when I'm traveling, regardless of what country I'm in. At 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm sipping on some water, looking out from a 3rd-story window onto a street in Havana. And there are people walking. And they're dressed as if they would for their job that day. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. And it dawned on me, they're going to work. They have to walk to work. Their shift may begin at 5:30 or 6, but they still have to get there. And so, amazement on my face and in my mind, oh my, they have to walk 2, maybe 2.5 hours to get to work.
Oh gosh. And then
walk home. So the pace of life, as you can understand, is much slower than we have in America, simply because they don't always have the means to utilize quick transportation.
Bill, you might want to mention that cultural expectation for those people who have vehicles, that there's an expectation for you to allow those people who do not have a vehicle access to your car. So there's an expectation when you pass someone on foot to stop
and pick them up.
Or if you're thumbing a ride, that's not a risk. That is a cultural norm. I mean, you see a vehicle, there's an empty seat, indicate that you're interested in using that seat, and there's a high possibility that that vehicle will stop and pick you up.
We disdain hitchhiking in the United States.
I know.
There it is, as you said, a common element, because outside
It's
of
a necessity.
outside of the cities, there is no significant public transportation from one city to another. From Havana to Matanzas is about 60 miles, and there's a couple of buses that make that trip once or twice a day. That's all, and the buses only hold at most 40 people. But there are more than that on the roads. So as you're driving, if you have a vehicle and you see people hitchhiking, thumbing, the expectation, you are encouraged by the government to stop and pick people up. And so that is a very common sight in Cuba, one of the different cultural elements from the United States.
That you had to learn about. But if you were driving, if you had rented a car and was driving, would you have picked them up, and that would have given you a chance one-on-one to visit with someone?
If we do vehicles, by the way, renting a vehicle in Cuba is a little unusual. We would do that, and we have done that. You rented a vehicle. We've done it twice that I know of, and yeah, we would have picked up people along the way. Not necessarily just to tell them about Jesus, but just to be culturally correct.
But as you, and of course having your people on the ground there that lives there and that are part of the culture, then you were able to design your program to meet them where they are and give them the message.
It's extremely important for us not to be the ugly American. There was a book written, if you'll remember, back in the 40s, as I remember. And then William J. Fulbright wrote a book called The Arrogance of Power, talking specifically about the Vietnam War. But both of them talked about the fact that Americans tend to come in and say, okay, we have this under control. You do this, and we're going to make this better with all the best intentions. We have found that people don't like that, just like we don't like somebody coming in. So when we go to a country, Cuba or Africa or any other place, we try to work with a local congregation, a local group, and we try to fit in culturally with what they do. And with Cuba, we have a Cuban national who is our representative, lives in Matanzas, and helps us with all of those kind of things. Interesting story, Tony's own house was allowed to be deeded to their church. Unusual case. So he gave up his house to be the church building.
So it's, we're going to come back and have the final segment of today's program in just a minute. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned. West Texas View will be right back.